Nick Bosa will be reevaluated Wednesday at the Greenbrier when they practice. But Kyle Shanahan was asked the question on Monday, did Nick not come back in the game as a precaution? And the answer was basically, no, he's still not feeling good. So it was more he couldn't go than it was, we've got this game in hand, let's just shut him down. And I don't know, I haven't seen any news on this today. Maybe you have. I expect Robbie Gould to be okay, but the Niners are working out some kickers on Tuesday just in case. By the way, do you work out at the team facility or do you go to the Greenbrier? How's that?
I think just because you're practicing there, that you've flown these guys out there.
So all these guys get a trip to the Greenbrier.
Because what would be the point? Even let's just hypothetically say Adam Peters and a couple guys were staying back. If you signed them, you have to fly them out, right? So you might as well just bring them there to begin with.
Yeah.
I would not go as far as my confidence level on Robbie Gould is like he'll be okay. He's injured until I get further notice.
Yeah, I mean, I just bone bruised to me is kind of, but you're right. I mean,
but he's not. We're not talking about Anthony Munoz here battling through, or Larry Allen or Emmitt Smith battling through a dislocated shoulder. Like he got hit. We all made fun of him, and he's squinting, and it's just like he's a kicker. Like it's part of his pain tolerance. I don't expect to be as high as my defensive tackle. Like when Nick Bosa, like that's a problem, right? And I think first and foremost, Bosa, of all the guys that got hurt on that day, obviously some are major injuries. I mean, Mosley tore his ACL and Jimmy Ward broke his hand. If he can't put a cast on it, he could be out a long time, right? A month plus.
Yeah.
Which will basically more than half the season's gone like in the snap of a finger. Emmanuel Mosley, I'm pretty unemotional about football in terms of injuries and so numb to it. And I don't get so worked up about and I think a lot of people in quote unquote this space kind of fake it. I'm not rooting or not rooting for guys, but there are certain people that you're like, that's pretty cool. Like he came up as an undrafted free agent at corner, came up the hard way, earned his way to a starting spot, and then became a really good player on arguably the best defense in the league. He was headed to be an unrestricted free agent at a position that I would say a little bit like tackle. Like there just aren't that many tackles that hit the open market. Just like there aren't that many corners. Boom. 2 corners this year hit the open market. J.C. Jackson, Travarius Ward, both of them got big cash. Emmanuel Mosley, I don't know, would be viewed anywhere like J.C. Jackson. But why couldn't he, if he had a really good season, be kind of like a little lesser version of Ward? Like why couldn't he have got $25 million guaranteed, 3 years, $40 million? He would have got a lot of money.
Yeah.
To tear his ACL like that fucking sucks. I mean, that really sucks. That for a guy that had just done it the hard way. It wasn't a first-round pick, never got any money. I mean, he was making almost $4 million this year, but he had earned that, worked his way up.
This was his moment.
This was his time. And he was playing well.
John, they were the number one pass defense in the league. I mean, him and Charvarius Ward, they were he'd become in part, not that this really matters, but it kind of happened with J.C. Jackson. Just kind of like Charvarius Ward, but I don't know, maybe this is wrong. Chiefs fans were definitely aware of him, but I think probably more of hardcore NFL fans were aware of Charvarius Ward.
Their defense wasn't that good for a lot of his time there, remember?
Yeah, it wasn't so. I mean, he was a very good player, obviously, and right now he has already in 6 weeks become like a cooler player than he was in his time in Kansas City, just because this team is being led by its defense, and he's a big part of that. My point is that Emmanuel Mosley was going to be the kind of guy that felt like a splash, even a casual fan, if this thing just kept going the way it was going for him. He just had a pick 6 in that game. He was, So
you're saying if next year the Dolphins sign Emmanuel Mosley,
I'm saying somebody's owner, a team owner, would be fired up, and that stuff doesn't matter a ton, but it matters a little bit that your owner just knows who these guys are when they're the one cutting the checks. And I think that was going to benefit him. The fact that Robert Saleh is a coach right now, that DeMeco Ryans could be a coach in 2023, a head coach, that Mike McDaniel's out there. There's just 2 defensive guys who have both coached you being head coaches at the same time is pretty good for your free agency, right? Now, if he comes back next year for the Niners, because that's maybe what happens, and then the next year he's a free agent and he has half a healthy season last year, whatever the case is, then maybe it works out. But It sucks. You're right. It really sucks for him, and it sucks for the team because he was playing. It just sucks all around. It sucks for everybody, except maybe whoever gets an opportunity to replace him. But Diamador Lenore was already playing a lot.
Yeah, I think it's a replaceable position just because they have the bodies. The guy that's clearly not replaceable if he has to miss significant time is Nick Bosa. And part of when you threw that Field Yates, like the number one thing that I saw when Field tweeted that out yesterday, and he just like the personnel notice comes out every day in the NFL. And on that personnel notice, it starts with people that have been waived, people that have been claimed, and then once the season starts, you have to announce when you work out players. So any street free agents, as these guys are, if you work them out, you put it on the notice. So he's just, tweeting out the people that the Niners put on the personnel notice. Well, to me, what stands out about that is they got two guys who are just missing week in, week out now in Armstead and obviously Kinlaw. And to me, Armstead's shitty deal, right? I mean, his foot, who knows? The Kinlaw thing, and I told you this when we hopped on, I had multiple teams. I was like, what is Kinlaw's deal? Because anytime you're that big in the SEC, like it's not that crazy to get drafted top 15. And they said, obviously, no one disputes his freak ceiling and talent. We had him having a degenerate knee, which happens to a lot of players, right? When they come out in the process, knee issues for running backs, for safeties, for skill guys or linemen scares teams off. Because a degenerate knee doesn't mean like Kinlaw's barely played, but like you can't give me 3 or 4 really good years. It's like, I don't think you're going to be able to do it for like multiple contracts.
Right.
So if I'm going to invest a high pick on you, ideally I want to have a second contract guy. And that was the knock on him. And I'd say that is like he got microfracture ACL, like he got the total package surgery. And now it's not holding. It's like it's like you glued something on the wall and the thing starts slipping, or like your tape doesn't hold. That's what it feels like is happening. And they're going to be very sensitive to this situation because he's been sensitive about this. And I understand when he got mad at Grant, like I get it from his position. Can you imagine knowing how much talent you have and just thinking like my fucking knee won't work? And at the time, he probably felt really healthy. He's like, I'm going to show all these motherfuckers, Grant, I'm going to kick your ass first, and then I'm going to kick the offensive lineman's ass. Well, now his knee's not working, clearly, right? He's not able to play in games, but they're clearly going to be hesitant to put him on injured reserve, right? They don't want to do that. To me, that's a double whammy. That's one, you're acknowledging he's not healthy. And you're also just like, does he go into the tank? Like, does this just derail his mental headspace? To me, the Bosa thing's a little freakish, but kind of like those other two guys, like it's not finite. Like if you tell me Nick Bosa misses the next 3 games, it's possible. If you tell me he comes back, next week against the Chiefs, I'll believe it. But who knows? But I do know you ain't risking it, right? I ain't bringing him back a week too early and then having him come up lame. And part of that injury, a little like the hammy, last year, Greenlaw missed a bunch of time. Remember, he came back and like the second or third big play he had, he comes up limping and he's out. It's just one of those things so they got 3 guys who are, I don't know. One's an all-pro. The other 2 guys are, Armstead's a high-level starter, and Kinlaw, they just need that body type.
Paid like an all-pro.
Who?
Armstead is paid like an all-pro. And has earned his money when he's been healthy.
I don't know if you can just maintain this elite defense missing Bosa, Armstead, Mosley. Like, how many guys can you miss?
Alshire.
Jimmy Ward.
Ward.
You've been rolling a lot with backup safeties here. Like, it was Fred Warner and Greenlaw just going to make every single tackle.
Well, there are years like that, right? Charvarius Ward being there helps. Hufunga helps. Hufunga's making some of those tackles.
Making a lot of them.
Drake Jackson, like Omenahu, like the Niners do kind of attack in waves, and they're even, it's pretty crazy that they actually have some semblance of depth still, given the injuries they've had. But you're right. We'll find out Wednesday on Bosa. The fact that Armstead, these injuries, groin can linger. The knee has lingered Kinlaw's whole career. Plantar fasciitis lingers. Anyone that's a sports fan knows when you hear plantar fasciitis, you don't have a solid timeline on a return.
Sounds like just pain in your foot.
Yeah, that's what Armstead's dealing with. So, there's not even really clear target dates on returns for these guys. And I think to a large degree it hinges on Bosa. Do you have the guy that's going to lead the NFL in sacks if he's healthy or not? And honestly, we could talk. I mean, this is a much
one
bigger
bright
topic.
spot is, did you see the clip of them walking out in Carolina? I wish I loved the song last year. They went with another song. Trent was right next to Debo. Now, he was obviously not padded out, but like him walking and being like that, to me, he's probably a little closer. Like if you told me he's back by the Chiefs game, somewhat believable. To me, there are different levels of high ankle sprain. It feels like his high ankle sprain is not some devastating high ankle sprain like we've seen for like 2 months. If you're already letting him lead the team out walking, right? He's not in a boot or anything, and he worked out a little before the game. So for all the negative, like that would be a huge, like if I just tell you Trent Williams is back next week, that's a huge boost.
Why you think Chris Jones could be a problem?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, good luck. The Niners have about, you see, they rotate guards, Brunskill, Burford. You know, it's like,
do it on defense. Why not? What does Kasarik do? Can we do that on offense too? Why not?
Yeah, you know,
it's like, oh, we don't know who's blocking. Is it Brunskill? Yeah, it's very clever.
You think they like the Chris Jones? Just put him right over Jake Brendel. Who you think Chiefs like that matchup?
Might have to put. Can you just line Kittle up at like, you know, where the Air Force, like where Air Force lines up like their triple option teams line up like their wing backs, just kind of line them up kind of as another offensive lineman.
You remember when Chris Jones tripped at the combine and his penis fell out?
Yes. By the way,
come a long way.
A film study. Speaking of being offsides, the Chiefs lined up offsides multiple times on their interior line. I thought against
they're aggressive
on the night. Like multiple times they lined up offsides and didn't get called. So
send a text to Jed, have him tell the league.
Playing the Falcons, like you need Nick a little bit more when you play Kansas City in 2 weeks. And I don't want Nick Bosa. I mean, like the way that they talk about turf, I don't want Nick Bosa playing on the turf in Atlanta.
Yeah, I don't think he will be.
Trying to here's the other thing. Trying to like change directions to chase down Mariota.
Mahomes kind of a shiftier guy. Slower, but shifty.
But at least you're at home. You're on your grass for that game. So, you know, I don't know. There's to your point. There's only so many of these. It's only week 6, or I mean, it's been 5 weeks of football, right? Like, are they just healthy the rest of the year?
Well, I was thinking about this today. Like, they're just, when you already have this many injuries, you're just then a couple more injuries away from disaster. Like, what if Jeff Wilson gets hurt and Brandon Ayuk pulls a hammy? All of a sudden, it's like usually
Danny Gray, baby.
When you're just starting at square one, you can like take a couple steps back. They're already below the line when it comes to injuries. You know, I mean, it feels like the Chiefs relatively healthy. Even they had a scare yesterday, like Haberman. Like, did he just pull his hammy? And then like 2 plays later, they gave it to him on a reverse.
Yeah, what was it, like his heel or something?
Yeah, it's like, why can't that ever happen to the Niners? You know, he's fine. Come back in. It always feels like, he's out, guys. Let's go to the sideline. Well, quick update here from Kyle Shanahan's sideline. He's going to be missing 17 of his 45 players have already been hurt in the first quarter. He's going to try to make do. The Athletic had this article where they just 1 through 32. Niners were 5th, like in their power rankings. And in the power rankings, each team, they would do a potential trade. So like the Bills, it was like McCaffrey. And for the Niners, it was Nick Foles. And the logic was you're just one injury away. I was like, don't totally hate it.
I mean, Jimmy seasons do tend to have injuries.
Their point was like they're clearly pretty good, and they're just one rolled ankle away from Brock Purdy manning the ship.
Well, if their defense was healthy, you could survive that. But
now, in fairness, every time I look up at Iowa State, they're kind of falling apart. They just lost a game like 10-9.
Yeah, I do wonder if the coaches missed his window. Or you could argue, who cares if you think a guy's good? You don't only.
I think he's clearly pretty good. He loses a lot of tight games to.
Maybe
you know who the quarterback is for K-State? 559.
Oh, Adrian Martinez. Yeah,
who's having like a bounce back.
I saw like 2 weeks ago. He had a great whoever they played.
Well, he destroyed Venables.
I guess I missed this. So the update: Sam Sloman has been signed kicker to the Niners practice squad. If Robbie Gold can't go, it'll be Sloman. Sunday against the Falcons in his hometown.
Can you imagine how many guys in football, more than the other two major sports, that just at one point in time during the football season are just like at home on their couch and just like, what are you going to do? And the guy's like, bro, my agent says to stay ready.
Stay ready.
And then some of his buddies are like, fuck, this guy's talking about.
Where's Sam? Oh, he's out at the park kicking 50-yarders.
And then like 3 weeks later, the buddies are watching you play on Sunday Night Football.